Uh-oh, Internet. Mario fans are upset with Nintendo about something. Who would have thought? It seems this time around people are up in arms about what's included, or rather, what's excluded, in Super Mario 3D All-Stars. In the wake of the Super Mario 35th Anniversary Nintendo Direct, everyone has found something to be judgmental about, except me. Unpopular opinions are questionable territory on YouTube, but I'm going to shoot my shot with a hot take. Mario 3D All-Stars is an adequately priced, appealing package of games, and not a damn thing about the announcement was surprising to me at all. Let's get the facts out of the way quickly first. It's fresh in everyone's head because of the millions of videos and articles circulating about it currently, but Mario 3D All-Stars is launching for the Nintendo Switch on September 18th, and it will be a limited retail run with a digital edition available for a limited time until the end of March 2021. It includes higher resolution versions of Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, and Mario Galaxy with widescreen support, as well as a built-in music player to further explore the soundtracks of the games. It's selling for a full MSRP of $59.99. Rounding out these facts is that I adore each and every one of these games. Mario 64 may be my personal favorite video game of all time, and each game in the 3D All-Star collection is hugely important to me. It's also worth noting that I have zero affiliation with Nintendo, so this is all on the up and up. I legitimately love Mario. I've been playing Mario for a very, very, very long time. Back to it. When this was announced late last week, consumer reaction was all over the place, due mostly to mismanaged expectations and false hope derived from rumors. But the major complaints that some are voicing fall into three buckets. 1. Blank is missing. This is in reference primarily to Mario Galaxy 2's omission from the package. It could also refer to Mario 3D Land and other omitted 3D Mario game, or even Mario 64 DS, which some hope to see as additional Mario 64 content akin to the inclusion of the lost levels in the original Mario All-Stars. But we'll get there. 2. $60? We'll get there too. 3. Ports? We want remakes. Slippery slope. Don't get me wrong, I want remakes too, but with classic games getting the full cosmetic surgery instead of just a spa treatment, you'd likely be looking down the barrel of 3 individual fully priced games. And if we're putting up a stink about $60, I would hate to see the reaction of $180 worth of full remakes. That being said, we're taking this one off the table for the most part because it's a different beast altogether. So we have missing content complaints and pricing complaints. Surprising indeed. We'll talk first about what's missing and the validity of classic games with a modern price tag in just a moment, but first, I want to focus on that element of surprise. When it comes to managing your expectations with Nintendo, the key to not being surprised is knowing your history, and that's why our story must take a trip back to the beginning to figure out how we got here in the first place.
It's me, Mario!
No, further back. Yes, almost all the way back. We're not going to go into great detail on these puppies because you all know the rap on the first handful of games. We've got the genre definer, the original Mario Brothers. It's a classic, you know it, you love it. Then we've got the black sheep, Super Mario Bros. 2, which is worthy of its own 20-minute video. In short, it was a quick pivot move made by Nintendo to save us from the punishment of the original Mario Bros. 2, later coined, get it, the Lost Levels. Then we've got the legitimate greatest video game of all time contender, Mario Bros. 3, another classic. These 4 original NES games will be wrapped up and resold to make the original Super Mario All-Stars released for the Super Nintendo in 1993. In all fairness, there was indeed more additional content than what we're seeing from 3D All-Stars. In addition to the 3 base games, there was updated graphics, the inclusion of the original Mario Bros. 2, The Lost Levels, an extra minigame, and cartridge saves. This All-Stars package was once again repacked in select territories a year later in 1994 with the inclusion of Super Mario World, this time under the creatively genius moniker, Super Mario All-Stars Plus World. But then, a slight lull. No Mario All-Stars for 16 years. That's not to say that these games didn't pop up in different formats during that time though. We had Mario Bros. Deluxe for the Game Boy Color, and a whole slew of Mario Advance titles, including Mario Bros. Advance 4 Super Mario Bros. 3. Yes, that's the real title. But no Super Mario All-Stars proper. Until 2010's Mario 25th Anniversary celebration, when Nintendo announced a special Super Mario All-Stars Limited Edition, a full-priced package of a bare-bones emulated version of the Super Nintendo Mario All-Stars with pretty packaging, an art book, and a CD soundtrack. And ever-loyal Nintendo fans responded negatively. How could they do this? They muttered as they looked up from their current playthrough of new play control ports of GameCube games on their Nintendo Wii. Nintendo really meant it when they said limited. It got an initial pressing and a single restock, then disappeared from shelves for almost 5 years. During this time, the game skyrocketed in value, with used copies of the game fetching more than retail price, and sealed copies being worth double that. And this thing still pushed out 2 million plus units. People like Mario. People want to play Mario. People buy Mario games. It's science. I'm sure back in 1993 there were a handful of people unimpressed and uninterested in the original Super Mario All-Stars as well. But without the mass availability of the internet, the vocal minority had less of a voice, and they deigned to return to their dungeons. All of this being said, you can see that Nintendo has a storied past of reselling their old games in new packages. They've even done a limited launch window of availability before. This is why Nintendo releasing Super Mario 3D All-Stars in some capacity is no surprise at all. Any rendition of Mario All-Stars is, at its core, repackaged games to be resold. Nintendo has been doing it for 35 years. If that's a deal breaker, if you don't want portability, convenience, upgraded resolutions, widescreen support, and you're willing to dig out your GameCube every time you want to play Mario Sunshine, then this collection is just not for you. But for most, things are likely starting to make a bit more sense. Now that we're less surprised that Nintendo was releasing these games in the first place, let's break down those two issues that some seem to have, beginning with the arguably missing games. First off is the big boy, Mario Galaxy 2. Revered by some as the greatest of all the Mario 3D games, this 2009 Wii gem is all said a phenomenal video game. I personally adore it, and I wish it was included, but it's not. And when you look at the scope of calling a collection of 3 base games 3D All-Stars, it's easy to see why it was left out. It's a numbered sequel, so it wouldn't exactly make sense to include it instead of the original Galaxy. Could it have been added? Sure. And we like to hope that this one will see the light of day in a different format sometime in the future. Maybe in its own remaster or remake or 3D All-Stars 2. Time will tell. Mario 64 DS is a game that's tremendously strange. Released alongside the original DS, this rendition of Mario 64, available on handheld for the first time, boasted quite a few additional features. Extra levels, objectives, and a full cast of playable characters including not just Mario, but Luigi, Wario, and Yoshi. It was also a nightmare to control. It was meant to use the atrocious DS thumb stylus strap that came packed in with the system, and it was an absolute chore to use. Using the 8-directional D-pad on the DS was also somehow worse than that. To bring it all back around, this game was released as a full-price standalone title. See what extra features and content get you? A hefty price tag and a solo release. I only would have expected to see this game in the 3D All-Stars collection if it was supplemental Mario 64 content, in the same vein that we got the lost levels in the original All-Stars. My educated guess is that it would have had to have been one or the other between the DS version and the 64 proper version that we're getting. That being said, if you look at the Wii U Virtual Console point of this game, I think we dodged a bullet. Take a look at some of these weird controls and playstyles implemented on a more modern console. Yikes. Last up is the curious case of Mario 3D Land, released in 2011. This slightly underwhelming Nintendo 3DS platformer was the first in its own little series made up of both 3D Land and 3D World. It was novel at the time, and it still holds up well, but 3D World really blows it out of the water. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't exist, or that it should be excluded. However, we can live with it not appearing here. Perhaps even more perplexing than its lack of inclusion in 3D All-Stars is its lack of inclusion with the upcoming Super Mario 3D World port for the Switch, and we could make a whole different video on that, and maybe we will. But for now, it's another game lost to time. Okay, so now that we know what's in and what's out, what was our other complaint again? $60? Oh yeah. Now let's get back to modern times and those expectations we spoke about at the beginning of this video. None of these omissions should be a surprise for you if you take a look at Nintendo's storied history of leaving things behind. If you neutered Nintendo's ability to re-release their games, nearly a third of their first-party releases in the past decade just wouldn't exist. No Wind Waker HD, no Ocarina of Time 3D, no Pokemon Alpha Sapphire or Omega Ruby, Let's Go Pikachu or Let's Go Eevee. You have to imagine that the extra money made off of these rehashes with shorter and cheaper development cycles is at least partially going back to the company to enable harder, better work on the fully original AAA titles that Nintendo Studios pour their blood, sweat, and tears to. And it's a fruitful plan. If they get it right and they make a quality product, They can reproduce it in higher definition and resell it in a future console generation. Starting to see the cycle? In the long run, this is business, baby. Nintendo isn't your grandpa. They aren't making things for you just because they love you. They're a business. They're making things with mass appeal so that they can make more money. A first-party studio with Nintendo's track record of making original, quality titles at this rate is unmatched in the video game industry. This is barring any remakes, ports, or remasters. For every one of these quote-unquote cash-ins, we get more than twice the amount of high-quality first-party Nintendo games. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe came sandwiched in between Zelda Breath of the Wild and Splatoon 2. Mario Bros. U Deluxe, that the whole world complained about, came out in the same calendar year as Yoshi's Crafted World, Mario Maker 2, Fire Emblem 3 Houses, Luigi's Mansion 3, Pokemon Sword and Shield, and more. This damn company deserves a cash-in once every couple games. If you take away Nintendo's stance on backwards compatibility or digital availability, you take away a big part of Nintendo's cash flow and popularity. Now, I understand how anti-consumer that statement sounds, but when you really drill down and look into it, outside of costing us some extra money, this stance is truly what keeps Nintendo so relevant and popular after all these years. It's what allows them to rehash and repackage old games and generate hype once more for something that was released almost 25 years ago. It's the reason I literally threw my arms up into the air when it was announced that I'd be able to play the original Super Mario All-Stars from the Super Nintendo the very same day that it was announced during the 35th anniversary Direct stream. The ability to access these absolute gems in a more convenient way is more often than not worth the price of admission. It allows new gamers a chance to experience a classic, and it gives old fans another reason to revisit. It generates conversations like these, and those sparking up all across the internet in the past week, for better or worse. In closing, with Super Mario 3D All-Stars, if you're unhappy with the $60 price point, or the lack of vast improvements, additional content, or missing games, you're in luck. You can just not buy it, like thousands of other games or media that you walk by in stores or scroll past online. If you're like me, then that $60 is well worth not having to track down my Nintendo 64 or pull my Wii out of storage and hope that tear in the base of the sensor bar cord hasn't severed yet. I just want to take a spin on 3 of the greatest games ever made. These games are well worth your $60 in the form that they're being delivered in. But what happens next? Maybe we eventually see this Mario 3D All-Stars get packed in with the Switch system, like its SNES ancestor. Or perhaps we'll see it get the Mario All-Stars Plus World treatment, and we'll see a slightly different edition with additional games tacked on, like Galaxy 2. Or perhaps this thing lives and dies in this limited release window, and we'll get the Super Mario 3D All-Stars 2 collection with 3D Land, 64DS, and Galaxy 2 included there. Everyone's already clamoring for it. No matter what, with our shared knowledge of Nintendo and their release habits, I'll be happy with whatever they choose to put out next, and I think you should be too. But let's be realistic. People are going to complain no matter what, and I'll be here to make another video.